Hi, welcome to the museum. Thanks for coming to the talk. The artist's garden out front of the museum is something that the university kind of handed over to the museum about 6 years ago. And we invite artists to plant a garden or put in a sculptural piece or do something in the garden, and we leave those works of art there for a 2-year period, and then we switch them up again. If you're from campus, you may know that the last one that was produced by TH&B, which are an artist collective here in Hamilton, we ended up acquiring it, and it's now outside of the Fitzhenry Studios. It's a permanent piece on campus now. So today, for the next 2 years, Ernest Daetwyler's work, the Boat Project, will be in the garden. And Ernest is, I know Ernest from KW.
We go way back, yeah.
We go way back. And yes. He studied as an artist in Switzerland and Italy.
In Bern.
Bern,
St. Gallen, and then in Italian.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's received numerous awards internationally and in Canada and in New York. The Pollock-Krasner in New York, and Waterloo Region Arts Council, the Ontario Arts Council, the Canada Council of the Arts, the Ontario Arts Council. You were actually, a project of yours won Exhibition of the Year at the Ontario Arts Council.
Ontario Association of Art Galleries, OAAG, was the Exhibition of the Year 2009. That was the upside-down barn called Reality in Reverse.
Are you going to be showing us some of that?
That's in the, yeah.
Excellent. And he's exhibited internationally and across Canada for a number of years. He also, in KW, he's pretty important as well, not just as an artist, but he was one of the founding members of KAFCA, which is an international contemporary art forum that runs every 2 years in our area, and you were one of the founding members, and you were the artistic director as well. So his infiltration into the arts community is pretty significant and important, and we're absolutely thrilled with the boat. We thought that it was going to be, I don't know, maybe about a 10-foot long, 3-foot wide canoe, and we ended up with a 27-foot
yeah, it happens.
ship, pretty much.
It happens.
So Ernest is going to go through some of the various works that he's produced for a number of public sites. Are you going to talk about?
Yeah, I have a lot of slides, so I'm going to move relatively fast through the work. There's a lot to see.
And can we interrupt you with questions, or would
you
rather
can.
we wait to the end?
But we can't start like a philosophical discussion in the middle of the...
All right.
Because they're students and they have only 50 minutes.
They only have 50 minutes. Anybody's got to go back to school. Okay, that sounds great.
But I'm around. I'm here.
Okay.
Like
and so there's also light refreshments in the lobby afterwards if you'd like to stick around, and Ernest will be here and you can chat with him if you don't have to leave immediately. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. First of all, I wouldn't be here without Carol. Like, Carol is for me one of the rock star curators in Ontario. Like, I'm Swiss Canadian. So in Switzerland, whatever you do, you think of, if you start a project, if you could climb a mountain with particular people who are involved in a project, she would be the first person to ask to climb any mountain. So thanks so much, Carol. It's great to be here. I would also like to thank the staff here, which is amazing. And so I'm going to move through the projects. They're very different in nature. I don't have one particular body of work. You won't see a work of mine or a project out there in an exhibition or in the public realm, and you would be able to say, this is a typical Ernest Daetwyler. You won't see that, because I work usually for projects for a particular place and a particular community. And they're sometimes temporary, they might fall apart, sometimes they last forever. They can be very lightweight, they can be very, very heavy. So it's good to see a lot of them in order to get an impression how I came about to the driftwood boat. The driftwood boat is not a typical sort of work that I do, because it doesn't have, usually one aspect of my work is very polished and shows craft at a very, very high level of expertise, together with a great idea and the concept. The Driftwood project is, you don't see like that polished craft somewhere, like it's just driftwood. But it has its presence, and I'm glad I did it. I'm glad it's here. It found a really good spot. So I'm starting with the first big project I did in Stratford, Ontario, where I started out after the immigration from Switzerland in 1993. What you see here are the decorative former sandstone elements of Stratford City Hall, which is a very significant building, Victorian building in Stratford. And the building was restored, renovated, and all the old hand-carved sandstone fragments were basically discarded. They came from Great Britain in 1898, served for 100 years at the City Hall. To be discarded, I collected 200 of them within a year, and then I built this contemporary art installation out of it, which is accessible to everyone in Millennium Park. It's 32 tons, 130 elements in steel and stone. We transported the whole thing to Toronto and showed it in downtown Toronto at the former PKO Gallery, which turned into Peak Gallery and is now Matter Gallery. And then we transformed it and showed it at Cambridge Galleries in Cambridge, and then brought it back to Stratford. It has become, it was at that time a quite strong movement within the community. The Stratford Perth Museum was participating, Gallery Stratford was participating, the archives were participating, and basically stating the significance of these elements. So I did 2 presentations to City Council in my very, at that time, and still is, very strong Swiss accent. So that's in Millennium Park, so we can go to the next one. That's another project called Bubble Machine, totally different project, which was shown at the Art Gallery of Mississauga. It's basically a house in 2 parts, small house in 2 parts. There's a video installation in both parts of the house connected to a satellite dish, and the satellite dish is altered with high-level engineering to produce soap bubbles. So it's a humorous installation. It was shown at the Art Gallery of Mississauga, then traveled to the Expo 02 in Switzerland, so we transported everything in a high cube container, and it was shown in the canal to Switzerland. So it was shown at the canal towards Neuchâtel, so ships would pass through here, and they would see into each house part, and then the soap bubbles would blow. So it's a humorous statement about the media and the information we are bombarded with every day. Then we brought the installation back. Then it was shown at the Durham Art Gallery. It was installed on a dam there for a summer. Go to the next. And that's another totally different installation. It's a light installation on the fire escape opposite of the Festival Theatre in Stratford. So you would see it when you come out of the different place. It's installed on a former normal school. The Ontario government last century basically built 4 normal schools to teach teachers how to teach in schools. This is one of the former normal schools. His historical building, and the school song of the teachers trained in this school is displayed on the fire escape. The song refers to light and fire, and there's a flame projection on 3 windows inside the building. So it has a very sort of dramatic effect, and we had to inform the city that we are doing this project in Stratford, so nobody was alarmed. So that's the fire escape. And then totally different project again. This is the ice bubbles on frozen Lake Nipissing up in North Bay. It's a surreal installation, and the bubbles look like just some sort of objects falling from the sky. It has a very poetic presence, and they provided shelter out in the frozen lake. The project itself was created by Dermot Wilson, called Ice Follies, very innovative project up in North Bay. Also just for a short period of time. And then I was invited for a biennial in Germany, the Forest Art Path. The theme of that biennial was called Laboratory. So I came up with this idea and built the spheres in Germany. It's called forest cell spheres. And it looks like sort of a scientific experiment involving humans, maybe going, well, you don't know how it's going. It looks very strange, it looks very surreal, and it had that poetic kind of quality in the forest.
What is it made out of?
It's made of plastic wrap, what you use in the kitchen. Yeah, plain plastic wrap. Yeah. And so the next one, this is called Loveseat. It's one piece of stone. It's Indiana limestone. I carved it. It looks like a domestic furniture in the outside. And if you do that, if you place a domestic furniture in the public realm, in a park, then the nature around it becomes your living room. There's no way around it. So you appreciate what nature in a different way. It's art. It's at the Art Gallery of Peterborough. It was acquired by Canada Council for the Arts Assistance Grant. The next one, that's called the Luggage Project. It's also hand carved. Luggage Project celebrates immigration diversity in Kitchener, one of the most multicultural cities of its size in North America and Canada. And it shows that kind of experience. So I collected these furniture pieces and carved them. So there's this trunk, then some of the furniture pieces are transformed to work as a fountain. So I worked with a water engineer, then user, and he worked also in New York City at the memorial for 9/11 to calculate and create exactly that kind of water flow we have in these furniture pieces. So it's all hand carved. So when I was done and I won that competition, that was a competition, so I participated in competition. These two are very interesting because I got a call from a local art historian when I won this competition, and he knows me, and so he called me and he said, Ernest, do you know that like 50 meters from where the Luggage Project is going to be located was one of the biggest furniture company in Canada? I said, no, I didn't know that. Thanks. So that company, that furniture company is called the McBride Luggage Company in Kitchener, and was pretty much right beside Victoria Park, where the Luggage Project is now located. You can go there, it's going to be there for a while. So these two are from the art historian, are the actual McBride luggage pieces from that area. And this here is more like a refugee bundle where you just have a few minutes to wrap up and a few blankets, few books, few socks, and you run. You run for your life. So I worked with local multicultural associations, with the Empty Space Multicultural Theater to collect stories about why immigrants would move to that region. And these statements are displayed, maybe to the next one, displayed throughout Victoria Park. That's the entrance part. So this one says milk and honey on the other side, like it's the promise, right? If you move to another country, it's the promise that you'll make it. You'll make a better life for yourself and your children, right? And everything will be fine. So that's, yeah. I don't know if you had a chance to read that one before. That here is just from the airport, like a label I found. Because these luggage pieces are heavy. Then I was invited to participate in a project up in Peterborough. And this project is called Shelter Spheres. They have a lot of homeless people on the streets. So I created these spheres, some of them accessible on the streets, providing shelter for homeless people. So a lot of my projects do have a social component, like a social activist component, which I don't necessarily state. When I participate in competitions to see this, like it's an underlying component. I'm trying to contribute what I can to make this world a better place, but I'm not a political artist. I don't like that label. I don't like to work particularly in that realm only, also to not make it too easy to target me as an artist. This project is called Time Bomb. It's in a forest in Darmstadt, and it was built in 3 weeks with a team of helpers. We collected furniture parts, solid wood furniture, all over Darmstadt in 1 week. And then in the other 2 weeks, we built this sphere. It's 3.5 meters. It's an ephemeral sculpture. And it basically brings solid wood furniture back to the forest where it came from. The project is installed a stone throw away from a US Army base, right there. It's very close. And beside the US Army base is, of course, a German Army base. And they basically listen to each other all day. So this is another project. That's an image from a destroyed city north of Berlin, Germany. The city is called Pasewalk. It's a small city, 30,000 citizens. The city has a history of violence. The communists were there, and now they have basically a capitalist society. The region has a lot of problems, a lot of unemployment, 50 to 70% unemployment. There's a lot of people with not really a perspective for the nice life. It's a very difficult place, and so violence is there, and you can feel it. The city was destroyed twice in its history. Now you have the neo-Nazis and you have the far left-wing anarchists, and they're fighting each other. And there's a lot of people without a perspective. And the funny thing was, what I learned there is that there's a very little space between the very far left and the very far right, and there's actually people who are switching sides. And I didn't know that. And they're switching sides because both extremes have a tendency to become violent. So in that city, I know a friend who worked in that area, and so I went to the city. I saw all these hills on the ground, and I thought, what is that? And then people said, that's rubble. It's rubble from World War II. I said, okay. There's a lot of rubble here. And then I did a little bit of research, and then I found out that Adolf Hitler was treated in that city of Pasewalk after World War I when he was wounded in the mustard gas attack. He came to Pasewalk, was treated by doctors, also with hypnosis. And he was assessed as a psychopath in that city by 2 doctors. Both doctors died, were killed later. So there's quite a bit of history there. And so I thought, well, let's create a statement against violence. Let's do that. And so I met with the mayor there, who was a very progressive mayor. And it was okay, let's go for it. And then applied to Canada Council for the Arts. I got awarded from the Canada Council for the Arts. I got awarded from the Ontario Arts Council with a big grant. It was the first Artist in Residence grant. It's a new program they launched. I got awarded. And then I got an absolute veto from the city. And the whole thing changed. The project was not welcome anymore. The political constellation within the city changed. So the project was not welcome anymore. Like, I got the message, you're not gonna dig here for World War II, and no, you're not gonna build a sculpture here. To build a sphere. So it was a no-no for several months, and then I thought I have to resolve that. So I became active, and I consulted with the Consul General of Switzerland in Toronto, who happened to be the ambassador in Berlin before. So he connected me to rather important political people in Berlin, who connected me to the state where I wanted to create that project. And I was introduced to the minister of that state, who introduced me to the president of that city and said, you need to listen to this artist. And he listened. And then I did a presentation to all the political parties, all of them, not just the one on the left or the right, to all of them. And I told them, this is what I want to do. I got awarded from the Canadian Council for the Arts, OAAG is behind it, and the Swiss Arts Council is also behind it. And then I got the okay, I got the standing ovation, and the project started. So we dug up 35 tons of World War II rubble. That's here, part of my team. My team, I made friends in Germany in previous projects with the time bomb. So some of the friends I had in Darmstadt moved to Berlin to study, and they had another circle, and it was another circle and another circle. At the end, I had a team of 30 to 40 students from Berlin traveling to Pasewalk, 120 kilometers north, to participate in this project and to be part of that, what became a movement. Local schools participated. So we cleaned all that World War II rubble from you have to clean from all sides if you want to build with that stuff. And we cleaned it from all sides. And then we had to build we wanted to create a sphere. So in order to create a sphere, it's a lot of engineering. So I worked with engineers. What you see here is the bottom of the sphere with all the steel in there. So the earth all around is not just like dirt, it's the form where you pour the concrete in. So all the earth is a negative form, and then you pour the concrete in to solidify all the space, all the steel in there. You see it's a ton of steel in there. So I worked with a local sculptor, consultant, and very informed person who is on the very right there. His name is Joachim Munger. I always work with people, with very different people on projects, and I'm very lucky to find amazing people to help in my work. So this is negative form. Then we poured the concrete. So this is solid. It's all solid steel, and the whole thing rests on a tube filled with concrete in the center. You don't see the foundation, which is another 25 tons, a rectangular cube in the ground. And then we started to weld all the frame inside to build the wall, which is visible from the outside and is also visible from the inside. So we used that World War II rubble, these fragments of violence, to create something new, transform it. And so you can enter it with 20 to 30 people. You can actually go inside. And that's the top. Welded also with some weapons fragments. So we left the top open, so water and rain can go in and just flush out all the dirt or whatever is in there. And it's 5.5 meters, so it's the size of a small house in that park. It was a massive project, so it took 2 years of preparation with solving all the political issues, engineering issues, getting all the permissions, getting the team together, moving there, getting accommodation for the team, getting food for the team. So 2 years of preparation, and then 6 months on site in Germany every day. And Poland. It's a German-Polish project because police is just across the border. It's a very tense relationship. So I wanted to create their partner cities. So I wanted to underline that, and it's a whole new dimension, historic dimension to this work, because it's a German-Polish partnership, which is not easy. So the concrete fragments are across the border from Police. It's not police, it's called Police. In Poland, we brought it over. It's also from a bombarded site. And built that. It was recognized all over Germany, and had an impact. It was a self-initiated project. I got awarded with grants. With this project, I take on. You don't necessarily know how it will turn out. In that project, I came home with a lot of debt. I can tell you that. And you can't stop. Like with all the projects I'm doing, like once I go and enter a project, there's no way I can stop. There's too many people involved. There's In this case, it was a multinational project, multiple art councils, like it was a movement, it became big, and it was successful. So I came back, and this is just an old barn. I live in the countryside, so this was very close by, and I looked at the structure, and I don't know, it was falling apart, and some farmer said, we should take it down, let's burn it. Let's just burn it. And no. So there's a history behind it, and then at the same time in Wikimedia and Wikipedia, there's a lot of people coming together to create content on the web, on digital content. A lot of people, there's also in Waterloo Region, the idea of barn raising has a very powerful political component. A lot of entrepreneurs in Waterloo Region are talking about building and barn building efforts to create a new tech STEM initiative. So I started again with collecting material. I often start with that. There's something that attracts me to something, and then I'm starting to collect information. And so here I thought of these old barn boards, and then so I started to take the barn boards down, and then we took it down. The whole barn, you take the barn down like that. This is 4 seconds. One was before, second 2, second 3, second 4. You just pull it over like that. So I had all the barn boards, and then I was working with Kitchen Waterloo Art Gallery before, and then with Crystal Mowry and Alf Bogoski, I presented the idea to build a project, an upside-down barn in the Kitchen Waterloo Art Gallery. So they went for it, and it was also awarded with council grants, Canada Council for the Arts, Ontario Arts Council. So we built in 3 days the barn upside down in the Kitchen Waterloo Art Gallery, according to the space, tilted to the one side and to the front, it's leaning towards you. When you enter it, it's like, oops. It has a very strong physical presence, and that's maybe a characteristic in all my work. When you see it on site, it has a very strong, you don't necessarily know why, but it has a very strong presence, and the presence can be silent, but it's some sort of energy I like to create. And it's not necessarily that you can address it with words or describe it with words or even photograph it or video. It doesn't really do its job with a lot of projects I do. So it's good to see it and experience the work on your own. So that's that. So I showed also a video from the basement of the barn where there's all kinds of sounds in an old barn. There's some plastic moving and some steel clapping somewhere, and then the wind is going through it. It's alive. So I showed that also with the sculptural work. And then a whole new body of work started with the experience of becoming a father. So this new body of work there was inspired by that experience of being a father, the experience of seeing childhood through the eyes of my child, through all the toys and the stories she would hear and I would see, and all the videos and the books. So this body of work is called Life is But a Dream. Life is But a Dream. So the slide before showed a garden of spheres and fairy tales and old trees. If we can just go quickly back to the one before. So the old trees we brought in from out there in the countryside, also brought the whole trees, cut the trees up and brought it in, put it back together. And according to the size of the gallery, that was in Gallery Stratford. And then we built the sun and the cloud. These are fabric toys from children. I collected in villages out there and also from the Salvation Army in Kitchener and other places. And this is the monster TV, the monster sofa, and the cloud in the sky. The wall of nightmares and dreams, it's all plastic toys. I tend to be excessive. Or so I'm sorry about that. So this is the interior of another project, also belonging to that body of work. It's the centerpiece. It's called Life is But a Dream. It's an interactive audio installation. So you see 100 rods coming out of a sphere, a metal sphere. So you have all the technology inside. What you see here are dismantled speakers from toy elements all around. So when you enter the space, you activate the toys. Some of them, 20 of them, 30 of them, 50 of them, or all 100. And then it becomes a very strong audio experience in the world of a toddler, of a kid. It's like what you find in the market, what surrounds them. So this is the installation in action. Then I won a public art project in Kitchener. It's at the Sunnyside campus, which is a retirement and nursing home for a lot of old people there, a lot of old people at the end of their lives from diverse backgrounds. And it was a challenge because with hundreds and hundreds of old people with that kind of life experience, like, who are you to tell them something? Like, they've seen it. Like, they've traveled all over the world, they lived all over the world. Like, who are you to come there and do like an art project? So that was the challenge for me, and that's always my challenge, that I'm very humble in this regard. Like, I look at things and then I don't take it for granted that I can do something, and then I do research and try to develop an idea that is relevant for that community, in this case, the Tree of Life. The Tree of Life is a symbol that appears in many world religions. So I worked with that idea and created a sphere out of a wild apple tree in the countryside. So we unearthed a wild apple tree with the roots still intact, and then cut it apart at times, and then put it together with wicks and branches with it exactly the right curvature to create a sphere, and then fused it together with wooden dowels, and then used wax to model the joints and the cracks and so on, and then cast the whole thing in bronze. And in bronze, if you cast that in bronze, it's a lost wax process, so you cut everything in parts. So this whole thing, once we created the model, one-to-one life, the foundry, I worked with Artcast in Georgetown, the foundry had to cut everything apart again. So it was 120, 130 pieces, all of them cast in bronze and then welded together again. So it was a major, major task for them, and then we applied a patina to it, and it's now installed at the Sunnyside campus in Kitchener on Franklin Street. And then I was lucky to win another competition. These are all national competitions, so the finalists are coming for 2-stage competitions from all over Canada, present their ideas and models. That was for the Waterloo Regional Police North building, a new building. So I worked over half a year with the architects of that building and the consultants and high-level staff from Waterloo Regional Police, and with representatives from the region of Waterloo. Very big meetings. And it was a challenge for me the role of the police it's a tough role. It's a tough role of the police to maintain order and be fair to all parts of society in the community. So it's particularly interesting in Waterloo, where you have 8,000 to 9,000 students coming to the city from all over Ontario, and lived there for a few years and study. So The Lion and the Lamb is the basically the heraldic figure of the region of Waterloo, and it's that biblical thing of the lamb lying with the lion, right? It's that symbol for peace. So yeah, okay, that's good. Like symbol for peace is always good. So, but there's this tension, and there's the tension between vulnerability and power. And we particularly see this kind of tension, and we're increasingly going to see that in the next years. We're going to witness a tension between power and vulnerable communities in our political system, in our countries, in the next decades to come. This is going to be rather important and will be a big part of our daily lives if we want it or not. So if we can go back. So am I too slow? Can we go back one? So I created the lamb and the lion. But the lamb, if you look at the lamb is not sure what the lion is doing. If you know cats, the lion is like tempted. The lion is, is thinking about maybe eating the lamb, It's like that kind of playful cat, like, it's a tension in there. So that's what I wanted to create. Yeah. So the next one, that's for the firefighters, new fire station in Waterloo, University Avenue East. And the challenge for the artists in participating in that competition was to do something with a very, very old hackberry tree standing right where the new police station is. That hackberry tree was unearthed and cut down. So my idea, there were other ideas from other artists. My idea was to use that hackberry tree, and it's a very simple and practical project for the community space in the new fire station, where all the firefighters are on a daily basis. So I carved by hand a fire hose out of that hackberry tree, out of that berry tree on the side, and then we stained it and preserved it with wax. And that's another project for Bakersfield, California, where I was invited. This is the model, and just to show how a model can change from different sites. So it's for the Bakersfield University in California, and they invited me to do something on campus. And in the Kern County, in the San Joaquin Valley, they produce 60% of the oil in California. So I worked with used oil tubes and pipes and created this sculptural work. And it stands now in front of the science building there. The title is All's Well That Ends Well. This is another project and an idea I developed for Mississauga. And it's a partner project of the city of Mississauga and Metrolinx. And I had this idea to work with the New Credit First Nation there, because I went there and it's the city of Mississauga, but the Mississaugas are not in Mississauga anymore. And that project happened way before there was any interaction with First Nations, and way before last year with the sesquicentennial, which has seen a renaissance of attention to First Nations artists and culture of First Nations, and it's a very, very important dynamic, which was missed many years before. So I worked with New Credit First Nation directly with Carolyn King. She's a former chief of New Credit in that project. So I used the symbol of the New Credit First Nation, which is the eagle. The eagle is the symbol for the messenger. And the New Credit First Nations people were famous for delivering messages, running day and night to deliver messages all over the place. And so I used the eagle model, the seagull. The assistant in that project was Samantha House, who modeled all of the feathers of the eagle and a lot of the eagle. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of work. And the luggage pieces are also collected. It's a similar idea with the Luggage Project in Kitchener. The luggage pieces were collected and documented from museums in Mississauga. So we documented them, we measured them, and then I carved them in Indiana limestone again. And also the trunk here. And what you see in front of the trunk is a child cradle board from New Credit First Nation. They came up with the idea and donated a child cradle board to this project. So we cast it in bronze. It's gonna be there forever. And Carolyn King, we talked a lot, and she said it's the real thing. It burns in fire. It becomes it transforms. It becomes a new symbol. And it's there, and it reminds people that there's a history to Mississauga and to New Credit. So that's a child cradle board. And then that's another public art competition I won for the Kitchener former county courthouse, which has its own history. So the theme was evolution relating to that particular place, and it was a prison, courthouse. So I wanted to go a little bit further than the direct history of the building and just this property there. So I built a project that relates to different notions of time, past, present, future. The limestone spheres on the right there at 50 centimeters in diameter, they refer to distant past. They're around 200 billion years old. It's sedimentary limestone, so it's basically calcium shells from living organisms that collect on the ground of the sea and become limestone. So it's Indiana limestone, the three spheres, and then for past, I used bricks from downtown Kitchener, from demolished buildings in downtown Kitchener. Kitchener is going through a bonanza of building, like it's a building boom. It's exploding. There's a lot of historic buildings that are lost. People are sometimes nostalgic about them. There's the former City Hall of Kitchener, which is not there anymore. The former county courthouse is not there anymore. So there's a lot of historic buildings. The Mayfield Hotel downtown. A lot of buildings that are lost to that new boom. So everything has two sides. So I worked with these bricks and worked with engineers to build this brick sphere. There's 7 circular layers of stainless steel inside, welded to a central tube. We might see that in the next image. So that was the start of the center of the brick sphere, because you can't build bricks into air. Like it needs some sort of foundation. So I started in the middle, built the one half of the sphere with different layers of stainless steel, different layers of bricks, and then we had to flip with boom trucks the half of the sphere to weld it on the other side. This is Joseph, my welder. He lives close by. So can we just go quickly back? So that's the interior of the sphere. That's what's needed if you want to build a brick sphere, basically. And you work with a team of engineers. And you know when you're in trouble is when the engineers are telling you that you will find your way as you will go along. And I said, oh, okay, good. So that's the welding done to hold the sphere together. And then that's how it looks on site. It was installed this summer. So if we can just go back for the present. For the present, I used the stainless steel sphere where you can see yourself in the mirror right now, in that very moment. And for the future, I created these 2 spheres from primary colors, aluminum tubes painted in primary colors, like sketches in the skies. because we don't know what the future is going to hold, and it's a little bit loose. It could be diagrams, could be charts, could be sketches. So in that project, with the landscaping, as you can see, the landscaping is not done. I found out that there's not really a plan for the landscaping around it. So I talked to the region of Waterloo, and then we came up with the idea to work with the CVI, the Grand Valley Institution for Women, like women prisoners in Waterloo Region, and half of the prisoners there are First Nations. It's very important to know that the population of First Nations inmates in our prisons is not proportional to the general population of Canada. There's a lot of First Nations people in prison. And regarding women prisoners, the rate is at 55% are First Nations women. So in that project, I'm going to work with First Nations women and the region to create a landscape around it. And I don't know at this particular point in time where it's going to go, but I'm thinking it could be a medicine garden, it could be a site of healing, it could be something in this direction, but it's not up to me. So I propose that the First Nations women talk with an elder in their community and come up with their suggestions of how to work. Like, I'm not directly involved, I'm just being consulted in whatever is going to be created there. So that's going to be very exciting. That's going to be happening next spring. The planting, that's on the transport from my studio, just to see it up close. And another shot. Then the next one is Lake Huron. That's just to give you a break. So that's Lake Huron. It's a beautiful lake, very beautiful lake. So I happen to be there often. There's a lot of driftwood laying around there, and as it happened in previous projects, I collect material. So over a couple of years, I collected a lot of driftwood. So it's all hand carried from the beach in my van. And I collected more and more material, and I was in touch with Carol that I'm working on this thing, and Carol was interested, and it changed. It is not, some projects are very clear from the very beginning as what exactly the form is going to be at the end, how it's going to look like, and in that project kind of evolved. Because the driftwood is telling you what it wants to do. It's shaped in a particular form. It has to find its way into a form. You can't bend it. You can't force it. Like it has its own life. Each of the pieces has its own character. So it kind of evolved, and in the studio, working directly with the welder and building it. And then this is already the transport. This is the install. Very impressive boom truck from Dalton Construction. It's just the site. It was pretty much impossible to reach the site from another place. So it needed that boom truck in order to get there. It was really elegant and smooth. There was no way around it. So yeah, placed it, and that's where it is. And it invites to interact. It invites to go in there, to sit there, to be a part of it, to. That's a photo from yesterday, I think. Thanks, Rose, for sending it. So, yeah, that's the bow project. Everything will be fine. Everything will be fine is an expression that can be understood in many different ways, many different ways. It can be encouraging, like if you have a child and your child is going on a journey, it's going maybe to university, going to another school, and you encourage your child and you tell your child, everything is going to be fine. It's going to be fine. You are strong, you can do this. You have all that it takes to do this. You can do this, and we are with you. That's one way to say everything will be fine, right? There's many other ways. So the inspiration for Everything Will Be Fine was, I studied in Switzerland, in a city called Aarau. It's between Bern, Basel, and Zurich. So it's to Bern, it's 70 kilometers. To Zurich, it's a close 40 kilometers. Basel is 45. At that time, there were a lot of demonstrations. The youth was rising. There was a lot of movement in cities. There were occupied buildings in Zurich. And there were concerts in these occupied buildings. There was tension between police and the people moving in there. And I happened to be aware of what's happening studying at the university. And so Zurich at that time was there was an area close to the central railway station, where there was so much drug use, heroin drug use, that it was really dangerous to move through it. Like the police had it was going on for years, and then the people had to move in because it was becoming so dangerous. And everything was volatile, youth was up, there were fights on the streets with police and so on. So it was a tricky place. So one of these occupied buildings, there was a spray painting at the very top in the roof part, and it would say, "Alles wird gut," which means everything will be fine. And it was of course maybe ironic, sarcastic. You can look at it in many different ways. I like reason. I think I'm an artist. My life is pretty interesting and wild already. I see a lot of wild ideas from fellow artists. Everything is possible in the arts. I like reason when it comes to that. So I've seen that, alles wird gut, on top of that building. And I never forgot it. I never forgot that. And it can also be interpreted in many different ways. It can be very positive, can be very negative, can be cynical, can be very hopeful, can be a new, better world, can be, this doesn't make sense, I don't want a part of this. It can be anything. So I think we're going to face this kind of tension increasingly in the future. And it's one of the reasons I built this boat for you to enjoy. And what I kind of would like to actually encourage and what I would like to hear is from the students here at McMaster University. Like I would like to hear from this generation, from the millennials, from this generation, tell us if everything will be fine. Tell me if everything will be fine. I really want to know, because I have a lot of hope in this generation. I think it's going to be a very important generation. And I'm very happy to be part of this experience. So thank you very much for inviting me to come to McMaster and do this.